Good morning from Sacred Space at Titania's Realm. It's Friday the 30th of January 2026 and the time is 10:48 a.m. to remember. I just checked, so my memory's not as good as it should be. Had a bit of a rough night last night, so I've had 2 bad nights with my bladder overactivity, but what can I say? I slept in a little bit longer after waking up because my hose fell off my mask, which is annoying. It keeps slipping off, so I'll probably have to buy another one. More money, more bloody money. But anyway, the new mask is working fine. It's now the hose that's problematic, so swings and roundabouts at Titania's Realm. But I only stopped breathing 1.1 times an hour, so I slept for just over 8 hours, so only 8 times. It doesn't tell you how long you stop breathing for though, but I guess it doesn't really matter. I'm breathing now, and that's what counts. And not only am I breathing, but I'm hyper-functioning, babies. I could be lying in bed today recovering from my 2 bad nights and my anxiety from a few days ago being at hospital, but no, I'm intrepidly reading stories on YouTube because I enjoy reading to you actually, and you enjoy my zany crazy ways and the wonderful stories I present to you. So it's a symbiosis. We all benefit one way or the other. Those of you who choose to be here, that is. Those of you who aren't benefiting at all, and that's okay too. You get your schadenfreudic type entertainment elsewhere, watching some other idiot struggle every day here on planet Earth in Brisbane, Australia. A bris, by the way, in Judaism, a brit milah to be exact, is circumcision. So I always laugh about the name of Brisbane, but you'd have to be Jewish to get the joke. I guess not many people get that joke, but only even amongst Jews, I'd be like, what? But anyway, I find it hilarious. But that's just me with my weird sense of humour. And yes, the bane of your life is the bris, is it not? Anyway, Brisbane has not been a lucky city for me. I did buy, and it's ridiculous because the odds of winning are very low, but I did buy a ticket in a house in Noosa, and I was lying in bed last night just fantasizing, because all you're doing is buying fantasies really when you gamble. It's you can fantasize for free, it doesn't cost you anything. But I was just fantasizing about being in that house, and it's got a gym. I hate gyms, but I'd turn it into a studio for my jewellery making and my other creative activities. And it's got a sauna, which might be quite interesting. I only went once to a sauna that a friend invited me. We were fully dressed. I was in a hotel she was staying in, invited me to sit in a sauna. But I haven't actually sat in a sauna, naked for the actual full experience, people of Earth. But anyway, and it's got a plunge pool and a swimming pool, and so I lay in bed last night fantasizing about being extremely wealthy and all the luxuries and creature comforts. But the thing about that house, should I win it, up in Noosa, which is a lovely place to live, by the way, it's 3 hours away from Brisbane, far enough away for me to start fresh, I guess. And but then I'd have to commute to see my psychiatrist once every fortnight, once a month or so, and I'd have to commute to see my hairdresser. So I was worrying about that. as if I was already living in the house. Talk about dreaming big, people are there. And then I worried about what I was going to do about the gym, but I decided it would be my studio. And then I worried about its parents' retreat is actually a cellar for alcohol. I thought, well, I'll turn it into a library for all my books. So I was reimagining everything, how I would make it all work out for me. And the colour scheme and the furniture, you know, it's not my choice of colours, all khakis and greys and beiges, so I'd have to completely revamp that. And then I worried about all sorts of things. I worried about all the problems that would arise from winning a multi-million-dollar home and suddenly being, well, asset wealthy. And it was amazing how my brain went on all these tangents of how I would manage it all and how I would live. But I tell you what, if I win that house, it would still be amazing because it's actually not far from the beach, and that's where I want to be, by the sea. So I was like, oh yeah, that'd be cool. And then I worried, the other thing I worried about, where I put my birdie boys, because I'd want them where I can be nearby and close by and have them with me as much as possible. So then I worried about which room I'd put them in, and it's got 4 bedrooms, so then I worried about what am I going to do with 4 bedrooms when it's just little old me. So I'll invite people to stay or turn it into an Airbnb or something, because it's my own house. I can do whatever I want with it. So I had all these fantasies, and it just got more and more kind of stress-inducing, because I thought, oh, but then I'd have to let strangers in my house, and then, you know, they might wreck my house. Or a house I haven't even won yet. And probably the likelihood of winning's not all that large, but well. It kept my brain going while I was wrestling with insomnia for about 5 hours during the night, between the getting up to pee constantly and the wrestling with insomnia and the dreaming about winning a lottery, you know, type prize home, and all the things I had to plot out in my mind so I could just have a seamless adaptation to it was actually kind of hilarious. And then I got upset because that house, they've planted olive trees, they said, but it doesn't have many trees like I have my beautiful garden. And then I thought, if I leave here, they'll bulldoze all the trees and put some ugly mausoleum on, so I'll have murdered the trees when leaving here. It's partly why I'm happy to stay for as long as I can. People are there. I'm protecting the trees. And I mean, my house is old and shitty, but the trees deserve to live, don't you think? So it all gets a bit mad, and I know, oh no, I can't possibly leave my garden, and then I don't really want to leave this garden, do I? I made all these excuses in my brain why the house I'm hopefully going to win is problematic. But you know what, and then I decided, oh well, I could just rent it out and live off the rents, and that would keep me in a nice style. And then what will happen to the house? Will people be good to the house? And all this worry about a bloody house I haven't won, and because it's created so much stress, I worry I won't win it, because negativity, people. You've got to manifest like it's real and be joyous and at peace with it. It's got to align with you. It's got to be, yeah, it's got to harmonize with you. Like I've made this house and land here harmonize with me after 22 and a half years. Oh, it's kind of sweet though when you think about it, how I worry about. And then I thought, well, no, I've got no friends left. Or maybe Robin and Peter would come up and stay with me, because it's 4 bedrooms. They'd love it. Peter would have loved it. They've probably got a ticket in it too, if truth be known. And you know, anyway, I just sat there thinking, what good is winning this fabulous home when you're all alone? And then I got maudlin. and I had to talk myself down from that. And then I had to finally, I don't even know what time I fell asleep. It was after hours and hours of worry and fantasizing and, plotting out my future if I won this house. I was like, wait a minute, Tanya, this is just all nonsensical and crazy and, not based in actual lived reality. So in the context of lived realities and living our best lives and being in our own space-time continuum and integrated and real, let's carry on with chapter 9, The World in a Wall. You'll know if I've won that house, people of Earth, because I'll be reading to you from a study that's in the house too. You'd be like, what are you doing, psychedelic dreamer? It's different environment. Be like, look what I managed to luck out with by the gods. I really don't like the gym though, because I don't like gyms. I'd probably consider keeping it for if people come to stay that like that sort of thing. And it's got a powder room next to the gym too. Well, I don't know why you'd want a powder room next to a gym. I guess it might have a shower. You can quickly shower and off all the sweat and apply makeup and all that sort of jazz. I've never had a home with a powder room before, or a sauna, or it's got a lift as well. Anyway, the last ticket, the first ever ticket I bought, because I don't like buying tickets and those kind of things, because it really is nonsensical. But the one before, which was my first one, was for a house in Byron Bay, whereas, of course, my dream place has always been my dream to live in Byron Bay. But now I'm putting out manifestations to the multiverse that I'd be actually happy to live anywhere on planet Earth near the sea. Be very grateful to be returned to live by the sea, somewhere lovely and beautiful and joyous, and as long as I have a nice enough home to live in and enough money, it would be quite marvellous. So anyway, back to the story, The World in a Wall. Trying to work out, all the workmen had parked on my grassy verge, like had to go up. They actually came up over the footpath. It's a bit odd, isn't it? Oh well, not my monkey, not my circus. They've all gone off to have lunch now, so that's good. Peace restored to sacred space. Right. The world in a wall. The crumbling wall that surrounded the sunken garden alongside the house was a rich hunting ground for me. It was an ancient brick wall that had been plastered over, but now this outer skin was green with moss, bulging and sagging with the damp of many winters. The whole surface was an intricate map of cracks, some several inches wide, others as fine as hairs. Here and there, large pieces had dropped off and revealed the rows of rose pink bricks lying beneath, like ribs. There was a whole landscape on this wall, if you peered closely enough to see it. The roofs of 100 tiny toadstools, red, yellow, and brown, showed in patches like villages on the damper portions. Mountains of bottle green moss grew in tuffets so symmetrical that they might have been planted and trimmed. Forests of small ferns sprouted from cracks in the shady places, drooping languidly like little green fountains. The top of the wall was a desert land, too dry for anything except a few rust-red mosses to live in it, too hot for anything except sunbathing by the dragonflies. At the base of the wall grew a mass of plants, cyclamen, crocus, asphodel. Is it asphodel or asphodel? It's spelled asphodel. I think you pronounce it asphodel though. I'm not sure. Thrusting their leaves among the piles of broken and chipped roof tiles that lay there. This whole strip was guarded by a labyrinth of blackberry, hung in season with fruit that was plump and juicy and black as ebony. The inhabitants of the wall were a mixed lot, and they were divided into day and night workers, the hunters and the hunted. At night the hunters were the toads that lived among the brambles, and the geckos, pale, translucent with bulging eyes, that lived in the cracks higher up the wall. I was just thinking, I haven't had any berry fruit this year. It's a bit odd, isn't it? Didn't get many last year, got about a handful, but there's been nothing, not even flowers this year. Disappointing. Their prey was the population of stupid, absent-minded craneflies that zoomed and barged their way among the leaves. Moths of all shapes and sizes. Moths striped, tessellated, checked, spotted and blotched, that fluttered in soft clouds along the withered plaster. The beetles, rotund and neatly clad as businessmen, hurrying with portly efficiency about their night's work. When the last glowworm had dragged his frosty emerald lantern to bed over the hills of moss and the sun rose, the wall was taken over by the next set of inhabitants. Here it was more difficult to differentiate between the prey and the predators, for everything seemed to feed indiscriminately off everything else. Thus, the hunting wasps searched out caterpillars and spiders. The spiders hunted for flies. The dragonflies, big, brittle, and hunting pink, fed off the spiders and the flies. And the swift, lithe, and multicoloured wall lizards fed off everything. But the shyest and most self-effacing of the wall community were the most dangerous. You hardly ever saw one unless you looked for it, and yet there must have been several hundred living in the cracks of the wall. Slide a knife blade carefully under a piece of the loose plaster and lever it gently away from the brick, and there, crouching beneath it, would be a little black scorpion an inch long, looking as though he were made out of polished chocolate. They were weird-looking little things, with their flattened oval bodies, their neat crooked legs, and enormous crab-like claws, bulbous and neatly jointed as armour, and the tail like a string of brown beads ending in a sting like a rose thorn. The scorpion would lie there quite quietly as you examined him, only raising his tail in an almost apologetic gesture of warning if you breathed too hard on him. If you kept him in the sun too long, he would simply turn his back on you and walk away, and then slide slowly but firmly under another section of plaster. I grew very fond of these scorpions. I found them to be pleasant, unassuming creatures with, on the whole, the most charming habit. Provided you did nothing silly or clumsy, like putting your hand on one, the scorpions treated you with respect, their one desire being to get away and hide as quickly as possible. They must have found me rather a trial, for I was always ripping sections of the plaster away so that I could watch them, or capturing them and making them walk about in jam jars so that I could see the way their feet moved. By means of my sudden and unexpected assaults on the wall, I discovered quite a bit about the scorpions. I found that they would eat bluebottles, though how they caught them was a mystery I never solved. Grasshoppers, moths, and lacewing flies. Several times I found one of them eating another, a habit I found most distressing in a creature otherwise so impeccable. By crouching under the wall at night with a torch, I managed to catch some brief glimpses of the scorpions' wonderful courtship dances. I saw them standing, claws clasped, their bodies raised to the skies, their tails lovingly entwined. I saw them waltzing slowly in circles among the moss cushions, claw in claw. But my view of these performances was all too short, for almost as soon as I switched on the torch, the partners would stop, pause for a moment, and then, seeing that I was not going to extinguish the light, would turn round and walk firmly away, claw in claw, side by side. They were definitely beasts that believed in keeping themselves to themselves. If I could have kept a colony in captivity, I would probably have been able to see the whole of the courtship. But the family had forbidden scorpions in the house, despite my arguments in favour of them. We're actually making good progress on that house. I've got about 5 or 6 builders there now. It's a steel frame. This is going up rather rapidly now. It was a long time and it was just left fallow. It's all very good. The sooner it's finished, the sooner I can be spared the dreadful noise. And then my neighbours will demolish their house and build. Dear Goddess. Anyway. Then one day I found a fat female scorpion in the wall, wearing what at first glance appeared to be a pale fawn fur coat. Closer inspection proved that the strange garment was made up of a mass of tiny babies clinging to the mother's back. I was enraptured by this family, and I made up my mind to smuggle them into the house and up to my bedroom so that I might keep them and watch them grow up. With infinite care, I manoeuvred the mother and family into a matchbox and then hurried to the villa. It was rather unfortunate that just as I entered the door, lunch should be served. However, I placed the matchbox carefully on the mantelpiece in the drawing room so that the scorpion should get plenty of air, and made my way to the dining room and joined the family for the meal. Dawdling over my food, feeding Roger surreptitiously under the table, and listening to the family arguing, I completely forgot about my exciting new captures. At last, Larry, having finished, fetched the cigarettes from the drawing room, and, lying back in his chair, he put one in his mouth and picked up the matchbox he had brought. Oblivious of my impending doom, I watched him interestedly as, still talking glibly, he opened the matchbox. Now I maintain to this day that the female scorpion meant no harm, as she was agitated and a trifle annoyed at being shut up in a matchbox for so long, and so she seized the first opportunity to escape. She hoisted herself out of the box with great rapidity, her babies clinging on desperately, and scuttled onto the back of Larry's hand. There, not quite certain what to do next, she paused, her sting curved up at the ready. Larry, feeling the movement of her claws, glanced down to see what it was, and from that moment things got increasingly confused. He uttered a roar of fright that made Lucrezia drop a plate and brought Roger out from beneath the table, barking wildly. With a flick of his hand, he sent the unfortunate scorpion flying down the table, and she landed midway between Margot and Leslie, scattering babies like confetti as she thumped onto the cloth. Thoroughly enraged at this treatment, the creature sped towards Leslie, his sting quivering with emotion. Leslie leapt to his feet, overturning his chair, and flicked out desperately with his napkin, sending the scorpion rolling across the cloth towards Margot, who promptly let out a scream that any railway engine would have been proud to produce. Mother, completely bewildered by the sudden and rapid change from peace to chaos, put on her glasses and peered down the table to see what was causing the pandemonium. And at that moment, Margot, in a vain attempt to stop the scorpion's advance, held a glass of water at it. The shower missed the animal completely, but successfully drenched Mother, who, not being able to stand cold water, promptly lost her breath and sat gasping at the end of the table, unable even to protest. The scorpion had now gone to ground under Leslie's plate, while her babies swarmed wildly all over the table. Roger, mystified by the panic, but determined to do his share, ran round and round the room barking hysterically. "It's that bloody boy again," bellowed Larry. "Look out! Look out! They're coming!" screamed Margot. "All we need is a book," roared Leslie. "Don't panic. Hit him with a book." "What on earth's the matter with you all?" Mother kept imploring, mopping her glasses. "It's that bloody boy. He'll kill the lot of us. Look at the table, knee-deep in scorpions." "Quick, quick, do something. Look out, look out." "Stop screeching and get a book, for God's sake. You're worse than the dog. Shut up, Roger." "By the grace of God, I wasn't bitten. Look out, there's another one. Quick, quick. Oh, shut up and get me a book or something." "But how did the scorpions get on the table, dear?" "That bloody boy. Every matchbox in the house is a death trap." "Look out, it's coming towards me. Quick, quick, do something." "Hit it with your knife. Your knife. Go on, hit it." Since no one had bothered to explain things to him, Roger was under the mistaken impression that the family were being attacked and that it was his duty to defend them. As Lucrezia was the only stranger in the room, he came to the logical conclusion that she must be the responsible party, so he bit her on the ankle. This did not help matters very much. By the time a certain amount of order had been restored, all the baby scorpions had hidden themselves under various plates and bits of cutlery. Eventually, after impassioned pleas on my part, backed up by Mother, Leslie's suggestion that the whole lot was slaughtered be quashed. While the family, still simmering with rage and fright, retired to the drawing room, I spent half an hour rounding up the babies, picking them up in a teaspoon and returning them to their mother's back. Then I carried them outside on a saucer and with the utmost reluctance released them on the garden wall. Roger and I went and spent the afternoon on the hillside, for I felt it would be prudent to allow the family to have a siesta before seeing them again. The results of this incident were numerous. Larry developed a phobia about matchboxes and opened them with the utmost caution, a handkerchief wrapped round his hand. Lucrezia limped round the house, her ankle enveloped in yards of bandage, for weeks after the bite had healed, and came round every morning with the tea to show us how the scabs were getting on. But from my point of view, the worst repercussion of the whole affair was that Mother decided I was running wild again, and that it was high time I received a little more education. While the problem of finding a full-time tutor was being solved, she was determined that my French, at least, should be kept in trim. So arrangements were made, and every morning Spiro would drive me into the town for my French lesson with the Belgian consul. The consul's house was situated in the maze of narrow, smelly alleyways that made up the Jewish quarter of the town. It was a fascinating area. The cobbled streets, crammed with stalls that were piled high with gaily coloured bales of cloth, mountains of shining sweetmeats, ornaments of beaten silver, fruit and vegetables. The streets were so narrow that you had to stand back against the wall to allow the donkeys to stagger past with their loads of merchandise. It was a rich and colourful part of the town, full of noise and bustle. The screech of bargaining women, the cluck of hens, the barking of dogs, and the wailing cry of the men carrying great trays of fresh hot loaves on their heads. Right in the very centre, in the top flat of a tall rickety building that leaned tilely over a tiny square, lived the Belgian consul. He was a sweet little man, whose most striking attribute was a magnificent, three-pointed beard and carefully waxed moustache. He took his job rather seriously and was always dressed as though he were on the verge of rushing off to some important official function, in a black cutaway coat, striped trousers, fawn spats over brightly polished shoes, an immense cravat like a silk waterfall held in place by a plain gold pin, and a tall and gleaming top hat that completed the ensemble. I'm rather fond of top hats. One could see him at any hour of the day, clad like this, picking his way down the dirty, narrow alleys, stepping daintily among the puddles, drawing himself back against the wall with a magnificently courteous gesture to allow a donkey to pass, and tapping it coyly on the rump with his Malacca cane. The people of the town did not find his garb at all unusual. They thought that he was an Englishman, and as all Englishmen were lords, it was not only right, but necessary, that they should wear a correct uniform. The first morning I arrived, he welcomed me into a living room whose walls were decorated with a mass of heavily framed photographs of himself in various Napoleonic attitudes. The Victorian chairs, covered with a red brocade, were patched with antimacassars by the score. The table on which we worked was draped in a wine-red cloth of velvet, with a fringe of bright green tassels round the edge. It was an intriguingly ugly room. In order to test the extent of my knowledge of French, the consul sat me down at the table, produced a fat and battered edition of Le Petit Larousse, and placed it in front of me, open at page 1. "You will please to read this," he said, his gold teeth glittering amicably in his beard. He twisted the points of his moustache, pursed his lips, clasped his hands behind his back, and paced slowly across to the window, while I started down the list of words beginning with A. I had hardly stumbled through the first 3 when the consul stiffened and uttered a suppressed exclamation. I thought at first he was shocked by my accent, but it apparently had nothing to do with me. He rushed across the room, muttering to himself, tore open a cupboard and pulled out a powerful-looking air rifle, while I watched him with increasing mystification and interest, not unmixed with a certain alarm for my safety. He loaded the weapon, dropping pellets all over the carpet in his frantic haste. Then he crouched and crept back to the window, where, half concealed by the curtain, he peered out eagerly. And then he raised the gun, took careful aim at something, and fired. When he turned round, slowly and sadly shaking his head, and laid the gun aside, I was surprised to see tears in his eyes. He drew a yard or so of silk handkerchief out of his breast pocket and blew his nose violently. Ah, 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 he intoned, shaking his head dolefully. The poor little fellow, but we must work. Please to continue with your reading, mon ami. For the rest of the morning I toyed with the exciting idea that the consul had committed a murder before my very eyes, or at least that he was carrying out a blood feud with some neighbourhood householder. But when, after the fourth morning, the consul was still firing periodically out of his window, I decided that my explanation could not be the right one, unless it was an exceptionally large family he was feuding with, and a family, moreover, who were apparently incapable of firing back. It was a week before I found out the reason for the consul's incessant fusillade, and the reason was cats. In the Jewish quarter, as in other parts of the town, the cats were allowed to breed unchecked. There were literally hundreds of them. They belonged to no one and were uncared for, so that most of them were in a frightful state, covered with sores, their fur coming out in great bald patches, their legs bent with rickets, and all of them so thin that it was a wonder they were alive at all. Oh, the poor cats. That's dreadful. Just gonna fill my water up because my throat's very dry today. I don't know why. Dehydration's a thing, people of Earth. It's probably all the peeing all night. By the gods. Didn't even drink a lot yesterday, so don't know what that's about. It comes and goes. There's episodes where it's bad and then it comes good for a while and then it's bad again, and it's a bit odd. Probably radiation poison from all the amount of time I spend swirling an EMF radiation from my iPhone. Probably self-bloody inflicted, people of Earth. Bit of a worry, actually, if truth be known. A great worry. It's probably why all my skin cancers are flaring up too. Right, we won't think about that because otherwise I'll get hysterical. I choose to be happy today. I'm alive in spite of all my various worries about my health and concerns about, you know, our general consensus world out there. Stress can kill you just as much as anything else, people of Earth. So you have to reframe your mind and say, I am healthy, I am happy, I am powerful, I am blessed. I'm truly greatly loved, I am respected, I'm treated with kindness and honour, basic human rights at the bare minimum. Pardon me. I'm valued, I'm cherished, I'm adored, I'm cared for. I'm a fierce, wild warrior goddess and an independent woman, so I care for myself. I advocate for myself powerfully and stoically and courageously. What else can we say to build us up, Buttercup? I have more than enough. I am prosperous. I am healthy. I'm fit and active. Well, I was. At least I was dancing once a week till that got ruined for me. Slow chipping away at that was, but I can't be bothered being around toxic people who are evil. I really can't. Wasting my time and energy. And life's saner without all that nonsense. The consul was a great cat lover, and he possessed 3 large and well-fed Persians to prove it. But the sight of all these starving, sore-ridden felines stalking about on the rooftops opposite his window was too much for his sensitive nature. I cannot feed them all, he explained to me, so I like to make them happiness by zooting them. They are better so, but this makes me feel so sad. I'm reading it how it's written. It doesn't sound at all like a Belgian or French accent at all, but you know, that's his reality. That's his reality, and not to mine. Mon chéri et mes chers. Mes chéris et mes chers. Mesdames et messieurs. Oh, never mind. I should be in France. What would I do in France? I'd be languish like I'm languishing here. So we'll get over ourselves. He was, in fact, performing a very necessary and humane service, as anyone who had seen the cats would agree. Shooting them, though. Like, really? Jesus. But anyway. So my lessons in French were being continuously interrupted while the consul leapt to the window to send yet another cat to a happier hunting ground. After the report of the gun, there would be a moment's silence in respect for the dead. Then the consul would blow his nose violently and sigh tragically, and we would plunge once more into the tangled labyrinth of French verbs. Starting to feel dizzy. I wonder what that's about. Not enough sleep. Not enough sleep of good quality. Meh. For some inexplicable reason, the consul was under the impression that Mother could speak French, and he would never lose an opportunity of engaging her in conversation. if she had the good fortune while shopping in the town to notice his top hat bobbing through the crowd towards her, she would hastily retreat into the nearest shop and buy a number of things she had no use for until the danger was past. Occasionally, however, the consul would appear suddenly out of an alleyway and take her by surprise. He would advance, smiling broadly and twirling his cane, sweep off his top hat and bow almost double before her, while clasping her reluctantly offered hand and pressing it passionately into his beard. Then they would stand in the middle of the street, occasionally being forced apart by a passing donkey, while the consul swamped mother under a flood of French, gesturing elegantly with his hat and stick, apparently unaware of the blank expression on mother's face. Why I'm laughing? Oh, let me just finish that. Now and then he would punctuate his speech with a questioning, "N'est-ce pas, madame?" And this was mother's cue. Summoning up all her courage, she would display her complete mastery over the French tongue. "Oui, oui," she would exclaim, smiling nervously, and then add, in case it sounded rather unenthusiastic, "Oui, oui." This procedure satisfied the consul, and I'm sure he never realised that this was the only French word that mother knew. But these conversations were a nerve-wracking ordeal for her, and we had only to hiss, "Look out, mother, the consul's coming," to set her tearing off down the street at a ladylike walk that was dangerously near to a gallop. I'm going to segue there because this is hilarious. So, as you know, those who come to my channel, the Tanya, the Mama T, Miss 5, psychedelic dreamer, has been searching for a true love partner ever since my evil, befouled and life-threatening divorce with my first and only husband. And so in the quest for true love, sometime, I'm trying to remember what year it was, can't remember, but anyway, I had started taking my daughters, my daughters down with me. I do remember what year it was because it was 1999 and I was working at the Queensland Police Academy from June 1999 till June 2000. So it was sometime during that year. So on the weekends, alternately my children went to their father. So on the weekends that I had access, I was so unhappy in that job, desperately unhappy. Like I had a few very lovely workmates and some lovely friends I made there, but by and large it was extremely tedious and stressful and triggering for me, and I was often in a bit of a state. So, and because I had a little bit of extra money because I was working and it was a traineeship, so I was on very minimal wage, but I was allowed to keep my mother's pension. So I had a little bit more money to sort of have that little bit of leeway. So I decided, for the sake of my mental health, which was crumbling at that point in time, quite severely crumbling, people of Earth, that I would take my daughters at every opportunity to Byron Bay, which is in those days a 3-hour drive. It was before they cut through all the hill and made it a 2-hour drive. Is it 2 hours? Yes, it's 2 hours now, but it used to be 3.5 hour drive to get there. So I would take my by then, 1999, how old was Crystal? 14. 85 to 99. 14. And so Jasmine would have been around about 13. And I would take them down, and they would complain because they really were quite, they were quite awful to me, really. So they would complain, when are we going to Byron Bay for? I fucking hate Byron Bay. Byron Bay is shit. It's a horrible place. We hate going in. This would be the whole drive down, you know. And I'd be driving, stressed out of my gills driving, which I don't like, you know, going on long trips to places because fear of breakdowns, physical, emotional and spiritual and mechanical to the car. And so I'd be doing this alone with my 2 daughters and going down there. So I'd try to go, sometimes I would try to go on a Friday evening because there were markets on, lovely markets near the beach. It was lovely. But most of the time I would try to spend the whole, you know, go for a whole day trip there. So we'd be there, you know, Saturday morning, we'd leave, we'd get there by lunch and we'd stay there till late in the evening. And then we'd drive back and we'd be home by about midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning. So it was a big day, but because I couldn't afford accommodation, hotels and motels, and I'm not fond of camping, that was how I sort of worked around things so we could have a little bit of respite from my god-awful fucking life at the time. It was very stressful. And I was still under constant attack, by the way, from my mother and Buck Shearer, who she'd hooked up with, and it was just beyond foul. So anyway, so every opportunity we had, we went to Byron Bay, and the kids would complain and moan and make it completely an awful experience for me. And then many years later, when they were in their 20s, they said, by the way, Mum, we want you to know we actually loved going to Byron Bay. We just liked putting shit on you. I said, oh, thanks for that. As if I didn't have enough shit going on in my life at the time, and I was trying to actually do something nice for us as a family. That's how you treated me. And they just looked at me. Oh, we thought it was funny. Fucking sadomasochism dripping through the family, intergenerational psychopathology and narcissism, sociopathology. I just looked at them, I thought that'd be right. That's par for the fucking course, isn't it? But anyway, this particular day was a lovely day, and we were at Main Beach, and I would have to have a nap because from the long drive. I didn't know even back then that I had sleep apnea, by the way. I just thought I was tired from my entire life and the immense cumulative traumas I'd endured. So we would get there and we would have a bit of lunch, and then we'd have a swim in the wonderful ocean. So beautiful there. And then I'd say to the kids, look, I'm just going to shut my eyes a little bit and have a snooze. And one time we woke up 3 hours later, all 3 of us had slept on the beach for 3 hours. Like, it was lovely and all, but, you know, bit of a waste of a day going there to pass out on the beach, am I right? Anyway, but this particular time we were down there, and we walked up to have a look at the markets, and it was very handsome, actually. He was a very nice looking man selling these little clockwork rings made out of watch components. Very, very interesting rings, and I wanted to buy one actually, but of course, as part of the course, didn't have enough money. So I was just admiring them. Anyway, he started chatting to me in French because I said, oh, you know, bonjour. And he assumed that I could speak fluent French because, you know, I don't know why actually. And so he says, oh, you speak French. And in French I said, I speak French very badly. Très mauvais. Je parle français très mauvais, monsieur. And I'd made it clear that I don't actually speak French fluently and well. But anyway, he was so besotted with me, this man. He completely didn't hear the part. He didn't register the part that I don't speak French fluently and that I can't always comprehend what's being spoken to me, because native French speakers speak very rapidly, of course, because it's their native tongue. And I can't keep up. So I'll probably pick up every third or fourth word and I'll just be like, we're not whatever I think's being said at the time, but I've missed large parts of the full context of the phrasing because, you know, ebullience and fluency. Anyway, he was a very nice man, and I ran into him oddly a few weekends later, because I go there most fortnights with my children. Started making it a practice that we went there almost regularly because I needed it for my headspace. And so on this occasion we were actually at the beach, the children and I, walking around, and I ran into, his name was Philippe, and he claimed to be a filmmaker in France. I don't know if he really was, you know. He made it clear that he makes films, and I found that incredibly interesting because my daughter already was training, you know, in acting even in school, wanting to be an actress. So anyway, we ran into him again on the beach, and he sees me and he's so excited, and he comes running up to me, bonjour, bonjour, and I'm like, oh, bonjour, monsieur Philippe, comment ça va? Oh, très bien, très bien. And next thing, he just opens his mouth and in full emotional kaleidoscopic effects just vents whatever he was venting to me en français, in French, and I'm like, ooh, oui, and I'm trying to keep up, but I'm only picking up every third or fourth word. But from the gist of what he was saying, he was telling me that he was divorced and he was hoping to find a woman here to get permanent residency, and I apparently seem to be the chosen one. And I'm like, oh, not sure I like this idea. You know, can't provide him with permanent residency because I myself live in poverty. It was really not much use to him at all. So I tried to carefully explain this, and he's just waving his arms in the air, getting terribly excited. My girls are like, Mum, let's go. Jasmine, Mum, let's go, Mum. She's rightly trying to extricate me from the situation. And I'm looking at Jasmine going, I know, right? I know. But anyway, he was quite a lovely man. And I didn't run into him again, obviously. It was just odd that there were those two encounters with him. But it was the funniest thing watching him waving his arms around. And then finally, after speaking for about 20 minutes, half an hour, assuming that I understood everything, he looks at me and he pauses. And he has this realization that he had just spoken for about half an hour and I had not understood anything really, just a few words, and that I was politely just engaging because he was a nice man and I could see he had a lot to get off his chest. So I was allowing him the space to express himself. And then finally he looks at me with this look of realization. And he looks at my children, who were like thoroughly pissed off by this stage. And then he looks back at me. And then he says, with a great flourish, Merci beaucoup pour votre attention. Au revoir. I'm like, oh God, he's got me that I didn't understand a word he said. So I didn't know what else to reply. And I just said, "You're most welcome. Au revoir." And that's how that potential romance began and ended before it ever got off the ground, because language barriers, people are there. But what he actually said was, "Thank you for your attention. Goodbye." It's very passionate, dramatic fashion. He was probably meant to be the love of my life, but language barriers. And what was I going to do with my 2 children watching the whole time anyway? And it was bizarre. It was very bizarre. And I still laugh about it to this day. The one that got away because he thought I was a fluent French speaker. Anyway, let us continue on with the story. So she's replied, "Oui, oui," to carry on with his conversation, which is pretty much what I did actually. Or I'd watch for his facials, and if I thought it deserved to be said, no, no, no. Anyway, it's really quite comical how I turn into this fucking chameleon and try to fit in, even with cross-cultural divides and cross-gender divides and cross-language divides, and just try to go along with whatever's happening and be pleasant and have a jolly good afternoon. And it can get me into hot water at times. That's why I stopped doing it in older age. I was like, well, it doesn't pay to go along to get along. You've got to hold your line. You've got to be real. You've got to be authentic. You've got to be honest. You've got to say, "I don't fucking speak French, so, you know, I can't understand you, so run along, find someone who does." That would have been more honest. Really would have. But I did tell him in French that I spoke French badly. But what more can you do with a lunatic? I must have said it so well that he thought I was being sarcastic or something, and that I was indeed a fluent speaker. Je ne comprends pas. Je ne sais quoi. Tout à l'heure. C'est un fait accompli. I still don't know what the hell that was all about. He was probably high. He was probably high. You know, Byron Bay. We had some kind of mania on board. That could be it too. Or there was some weird confluence of events that... But he was handsome, so I did give him my attention. For more time than he really deserved, given that he was not getting the lack of two-way communication. People are there. Two-way. And when I told my friend Jared this story for years after, he would just look at me and say, "Merci beaucoup pour votre attention." And I'd slap him one. It was funny though. It was funny. Right. This procedure satisfied the consul, and I'm sure he never realised that this was the only French word that Mother knew. But these conversations... Oh, you know, we read that part. She was running away at a dangerous gallop instead of being ladylike. As you do, know that feeling only too well. It's amazing how quickly you can hustle the bustle when you're trying to extricate yourself out of very fraught and difficult circumstances in a ladylike manner, people of Earth. Sashay away. Like RuPaul, sashay away. Right. In some ways, these French lessons were good for me. I did not learn any French, it's true. But by the end of the morning, I was so bored that my afternoon sorties into the surrounding country were made with double the normal enthusiasm. And then, of course, there was always Thursday to look forward to. My hair's drying, but it's drying in weird ways. Just zhuzh it up. Zhuzh la bouche. No, shut up, Tanya. You're getting yourself into trouble. Zhuzh, what is hair? Chapeau is hat. What is hair? Can't remember. Sounds like chapeau. Anyway, all the French people on my channel want to kill me now. I know. I will fermer la bouche, which means shut your mouth. I'll behave. That looks better, doesn't it? Less weird, and I'm getting all my greys coming out. I'm going to the hairdresser on Tuesday, and I don't know. I really want to go all grey and get rid of this itsy bitsy, half this, half that. If you're gonna be grey, people. Fucking commit. But then when she did bring it back to grey, I was like, don't like it. So it's not her, it's me. She's a wonderful woman, my hairdresser. I consider her a friend. But look at all this. Look. I've been hiding the grey for a long time now. It's a losing battle, isn't it? But I got to keep myself looking reasonably, attractive, just in the strange and anomalous event that I might meet the one day. The illusory one and only Kenobi. You are my only hope. But I don't want to rescue her. And I don't want someone being a white knight who's actually dangerous, and don't want a fake and a fraud. Don't want any of that, because we've had that all before. Right, where were we? Back to going grey and ageing disgracefully. Theodore would come out to the villa as soon after lunch as was decent, and stay until the moon was high over the Albanian mountains. I'm going out for a musical soiree on Sunday, and my hair's looking a bit awful. There's nothing I can do about it. It's 2 days before I'm due to get it done, which is a bit of a shame. But, people will just have to accept me for who I am. Grey Roots Brigade and all. Right. Besides, I'm not too hideous for a 60-year-old woman scarred by skin cancer, operations, and life scarring people of Earth. I've drunk quite a bit of water, a whole entire, how many mils is that? It's probably about 600 mils or so. It doesn't actually say. It's French, though. It was that French cordial. Gaia Frère, Gaia Brothers. Maison fondée en 1800. What's 90? Can't remember. 1895. 1800. Le 60 is 60. 70 is 70. 80 is what? 40? No, that's 40. I need to brush up on my French, people. Just in the event that I ever meet a wonderful Frenchman again. or win the lotto, take myself to France, find myself a nice little villa, live out my life in. Need to win a lot of lotto for that. Keep dreaming, psychedelic dreamer, gonna die alone in this house. Lovely though it is, it's a maudlin thought. Anyway. Thursday was happily chosen from his point of view because it was on this day that the seaplane from Athens arrived and landed in the bay not far from the house. It's going to be one of those days when my hair doesn't sit right and it drives me mental. Mustn't think about it, mustn't think about it, mustn't think about it. So anyway, chevaux. Chevaux, or is that a horse? A chevaux. That's a horse. Oh, hair will come to me. A chateau is a house. Very nice house. Chevaux. Chevaux. Horse is cheval. I'm close though, aren't I? I'm getting warmer. It's all coming back to me now. It's all coming back to me now. Right. Theodore had a passion for watching seaplanes land. Unfortunately, the only part of the house from which you could get a good view of the bay was the attic, and then it meant leaning perilously out of the window and craning your neck. I can't take it anymore. I just can't. You might back me. What do you think? What does your mother look like? Feathery, Mummy. You look feathery. You look like a rare old bird. Gone. And I don't like that either. Let's try and flatten that out. Alright, that'll do. At least it's kind of brushed now. Kind of, sort of. Right. Things I do for you, YouTube audience, to present myself like a semi-sane woman. Formidable. Right. The plane would invariably arrive in the middle of tea. A dim, drowsy hum could be heard, so faint one could not be sure it was not a bee. Theodore, in the middle of an anecdote or an explanation, would suddenly stop talking. His eyes would take on a fanatical gleam, his beard would bristle, and he would cock his head on one side. Is that, is that the sound of a plane? He would inquire. Everyone would stop talking and listen. Slowly the sound would grow louder and louder. Theodore would carefully place his half-eaten scone on his plate. Aha, he would say, wiping his fingers carefully. Yes, that certainly sounds like a plane. Yes. The sound would grow louder and louder while Theodore shifted uneasily in his seat. At length Mother would put him out of his misery. "Would you like to go up and watch it land?" she would ask. "Well, if you're sure," Theodore would mumble, vacating his seat with alacrity. "I find the sight very attractive, if you're sure you don't mind." The sound of the plane's engines would now be directly overhead. There was not a moment to lose. "I have always been, attracted." Hurry up, Theo, or you'll miss it," we would chorus. The entire family then vacated the table, and gathering Theodore en route, we sped up the 4 flights of stairs, Roger racing ahead, barking joyfully. "Sounds like a wonderful dog. I miss my dog. Mr. Crow's here to complain that I didn't fill up his little pond again, because I emptied it 2 days ago because it gets manky." So he's up there going, "Where's my water source, Mama T?" "I know I'm a shit Mama T today. Have to fill it up, won't we?" We burst into the attic, out of breath, laughing, our feet thumping like gunfire on the uncarpeted floor. Threw open the windows and leaned out, peering over the olive tops to where the bay lay like a round blue eye among the trees, its surface as smooth as honey. The plane, like a cumbersome, overweight goose, flew over the olive trees, sinking lower and lower. I keep hearing voices, but I can't see anybody out there. Oh well, it's probably the neighbours. Slowly the plane dropped lower and lower. Theodore, eyes narrowed, beard bristling, watched it with bated breath. Lower and lower, and then suddenly it touched the surface briefly, left a widening petal of foam, flew on, and then settled on the surface and surged across the bay, leaving a spreading fan of white foam behind it. As it came slowly to rest, Theodore would rasp the side of his beard with his thumb and settle, what was that? And settle himself, would rasp the side of his beard with his thumb and ease himself back into the attic. Yes, he would say, dusting his hands. He really is letting me know. He's jumped up on the little table and he's looking at me. All right, there's no food out there either. Oh, right, okay, I hear your complaint. Oh yes, he would say, dusting his hands. It is certainly a very enjoyable sight. The show was over. he would have to wait another week for the next plane. I'm laughing because he really is letting me know. All right, beautiful boy. It won't be long. How many pages to go? I probably should run out and at least give him food, if not fill up his little swimming pool. The show was over. He would have to wait another week for the next plane. We would shut the attic windows and troop noisily downstairs to resume our interrupted tea. The next week, exactly the same thing would happen, all over again. Just bear with me one moment, people of Earth. I'm going to give him some food because he's asking. You're asking. You're very demanding birds. You are very demanding. Yeah, he was definitely thirsty. He went straight for the drink of water I put down, because he normally drinks out of his little swimming pool that I fill up for him to swim in. He has a swim, but he drinks. But that's why I have to change it regularly, because I don't want to make him sick. Manky water. So as soon as I put the seed down, he had a look at that, and then he looked at me and all right, get your water now, and he went straight to drink. So I've dried another skein of alpaca fleece that I spun and plied. So it's dried. I can turn it into a ball now. Might do that well, I can't do it while I'm reading to you, can I? Because I've got to hold the book. Well, anyway, that's another thing I have to do, is roll that into a ball. So it's all happening at Sacred Space, keeping the birdies happy, completing tasks, finishing projects, reading to you, talking to my birdie boys. Could be out in the garden, boys. Yes, when I finish this story, I think we'll go out in the garden. It's very grey and horrible, but it's not too bad out there actually. We'll probably go out in the garden later. Right. continue with our wonderful rendering of Gerald Durrell's My Family and Other Animals. It was on Thursdays that Theodore and I went out together. I've got fluff up my nose now. Sometimes confining ourselves to the garden, sometimes venturing further afield. Loaded down with collecting boxes and nets, we wended our way through the olives, Roger galloping ahead of us, nose to the ground. Everything that we came across was grist to our mill. Flowers, insects, rocks, or birds. Theodore had an apparently inexhaustible fund of knowledge about everything, but he imparted this knowledge with a sort of meticulous diffidence that made you feel he was not so much teaching you something new as reminding you of something which you were already aware of, but which had, for some reason or other, slipped your mind. His conversation was sprinkled with hilarious anecdotes, incredibly bad puns, and even worse jokes, which he could tell with great relish, his eyes twinkling, his nose wrinkled as he laughed silently in his beard, as much at himself as at his own humour. Every water-filled ditch or pool was, to us, a teeming and unexplored jungle, with the minute cyclops and water fleas, green and coral pink, suspended like birds among the underwater branches, while on the muddy bottom the tigers of the pool would prowl, the leeches and the dragonfly larvae. Every hollow tree had to be closely scrutinized in case it should contain a tiny pool of water in which mosquito larvae were living. Every mossy wigged rock had to be overturned to find out what lay beneath it, and every rotten log had to be dissected. Standing straight and immaculate at the edge of a pool, Theodore would carefully sweep his little net through the water, lift it out, and peer keenly into the tiny glass bottle that dangled at the end, into which all the minute water life had been sifted. "Aha!" he would say, his voice ringing with excitement, his beard bristling. "I believe it is Caryodaphnia laticaudata." He would whip a magnifying glass from his waistcoat pocket and peer more closely. Ah, yes, very curious. It is laticaudata. Could you just hand me a clean test tube? Thank you. He would suck the minute creature out of the bottle with a fountain pen filler, enshrine it carefully in the tube, and then examine the rest of the catch. "There doesn't seem to be anything else that's particularly exciting." Yes, I didn't notice. There is rather a curious Cadiz larva there. Do you see it? It appears to have made its case of the shells of certain mollusks. It's certainly very pretty. Who doesn't like a case of certain mollusks? At the bottom of the little bottle was an elongated case, half an inch long, which is about that size, 1.5 centimetres approximately, constructed out of what appeared to be silk, and thick with tiny, flat, snail shells like buttons. I have to go back to bed when I finish this story. My energy's just been washed out of me like a tidal wave, ebbing away, sucking everything out with it. It's a bit like that. From one end of this delightful home, the owner peered, an unattractive maggot-like beast with a head like an ant's. Ugh. Slowly it crawled across the glass, dragging its beautiful house with it. I tried an interesting experiment once, Theodore said. I caught a number of these larvae and removed their shells. Naturally, it doesn't hurt them. Then I put them in some jars which contained perfectly clear water and nothing in the way of materials with which to build new cases. Then I gave each set of larvae different coloured materials to build with. Some I gave very tiny blue and green beads, and some I gave chips of brick, white sand, even some fragments of coloured glass. They all built new cases out of these different things, and I must say the result was very curious and colourful. They are certainly very clever architects. Just come over all heavy like this big, I can't explain it, like a heavy fog's just descended upon me. I'm trying to ascertain if it's me being tired or if it's spiritual. People are there. It can be a mixture of both sometimes. I'm not hearing anything, so it's not spirit per se. But I kind of have to shake it off. Right. He emptied the contents of the bottle back into the pool, put his net over his shoulder, and we walked on our way. Pour ça change, pour c'est la même chose. So it is spiritual, because they just spoke to me and said the more things change, the more they stay the same. Right, whatever. Thank you, Spirit, but whatever. Can you back off? You're making me feel dizzy and faint and heavy. Right. Talking of building, Theodore continued, his eyes sparkling. Did I tell you what happened to a friend of mine? Yes. Well, he had a small house in the country, and as his family increased, he decided that it was not big enough. He decided to add another floor to the house. He was, I think, a little overconfident of his own architectural prowess, and he insisted on designing the new floor himself. You're wanted. Thank you, Spirit, but I'm reading a story. Yes. Well, everything went well, and in next to no time, the new floor was ready, complete with bedrooms, bathrooms. They're terribly sorry. Oh, are they? That's nice. Who's they? we'll just carry on, ignore it. They descended like a heavy cloak, though. It's odd. Don't normally get that sensation. Well, everything went well, and in next to no time, the new floor was ready, complete with bedrooms, bathrooms, and so forth. My friend had a party to celebrate the completion of the work. We all drank toasts to the new piece of building, and with great ceremony, the scaffolding was taken down, removed. Stones Corner Hotel. No, I'm not crawling after those people. Hell no, I won't go. But thank you for the suggestion. Honestly. No one noticed anything. Anything amiss until a late arrival at the celebration. I think that's on tonight, to be honest. I'm not going, but it's just weird that they've jumped in. There's some attachment to one of those people, you know, trying to cloy and grab onto me. When I'm there, they actually don't really like me all that much anyway. So what is that about? Some invidious, demonic imp. Right, so I won't buy into the bullshit, people of Earth. Don't buy into other people's bullshit, especially when they're carrying attachments with them. Just saying. Right. Do not put your hands around my shoulders and dig in as if you've got digging your fingers into me. Remove yourself now or I'll banish you. Go back to the light. That was I could actually feel it going. My sister used to grab me like that. Foul creature that she turned out to be too. By all the gods. Attachments. Right, here we go. Getting very interrupted. I'm reciting Psalm 23 in my 23, in my head, because I don't like the way they're making me feel like they're pinching and poking at me all around the collarbone, all around my back of my shoulders, like a spiritual décolletage. It's weird. Go back into the light, Spirit. I came to talk to you. It's very nice, but this is not the appropriate timing. Go back into the light. Right. You're needed urgently. I don't think so, people of Earth. If I was genuinely needed urgently, there would be, what did I describe earlier with the Frenchman? Two-way communication. No oppression, suppression, depression, compression, or poking around the base of my neck, which is very uncomfortable actually. Remove yourself, Spirit. You have no right to touch me like that. Right, sorry about this, it's getting a bit weird, quite frankly. Consistently pressing into a nerve there. Let's have a look. Is there any manifestations of just a bit of redness? There's no throbbing or anything weird, so. Pour ça change, pour c'est la même chose. Well, there have to be dramatic changes in attitudes and behaviours towards me, and that's not going to happen since they planned this for quite some time, actually. Years in the making. Right. He was a little overconfident in his own architectural prowess, and he insisted on designing the new floor himself. Yes. Well, everything went well, and in next to no time the new floor was ready, complete with bedrooms, bathrooms, and so forth. It's quite clever, actually, building a house for your own extension to your own home. I admire clever, talented people who are self-sustaining and able to do things. My friend had a party to celebrate the completion of the work. We all drank toasts to the new piece of building, and with great ceremony the scaffolding was taken down, removed. No one noticed anything amiss until a late arrival at the celebration wanted to look round the new rooms. It was then discovered that there was I shouldn't laugh, it's not funny. No staircase. It appears that my friend had forgotten to put a staircase in his plans, and during the actual building operations, he and the workmen had got so used to climbing to the top floor by means of the scaffolding that no one apparently noticed the defect. So we would walk on through the hot afternoon, pausing by the pools and ditches and stream, wading through the heavily scented myrtle bushes, over the hillsides crisp with heather, along white, dusty roads where we were occasionally passed by a drooping, plodding donkey carrying a sleepy peasant on its back. Towards evening, our jars, bottles and tubes full of strange and exciting forms of life. Thank you, Spirit, but I doubt that's true. We would turn for home. The sky, that's what you are, always a doubting Thomas, Tanya. This is true, Spirit, but I live in the real world and I base reality on how people behave towards me or have treated me historically or continue to maltreat in many multifarious ways, and because that is my lived reality, that is how I base my relationships on actions as well as words. And since there has been no action, then what you're saying appears to be quite incorrect. Arguing with invisible entities telling me fairy stories, people of Earth, and I know a fairy story when I sniff out one, because do I not read constantly folklore and fairy stories to you all? Have to be grounded in reality when you're a shaman and you live with invisible entities that butt in on your readings. By all the gods, it's absurdist is what it is. I apologise. Well, thank you for that, for having the humility and the grace to realise it's inappropriate to tell me things that are not based on verifiable facts. Towards evening, our jars, bottles, they're laughing. They think it's funny now. In tubes full of strange and exciting forms of life, we would turn for home. The sky would be fading to a pale gold as we marched through the olive groves, already dim with shadow, and the air would be cooler and more richly scented. Roger would trot ahead of us, his tongue flapping out, occasionally glancing over his shoulder to make sure we were following him. Whoever the spirit is, it's like they're drunk. He's singing, I do, I do, I do adore you, in this weird lilting tune, sounding something like more out of Alice in Wonderland than anything else. Well, that's very kind of you to adore me, depending on which dimensionality you're coming to me from. And if you're of the light, by all the gods, need another drink of water, cleanse my palate. My eyes are even blurring. Right, we're nearly there, people of Earth. We've nearly reached completion of chapter 9, so we'll carry on. Theodore and I, hot and dusty and tired, our bulging collecting bags making our shoulders ache pleasantly, would stride along singing a song that Theodore had taught me. It had a arousing tune that gave a new life to tired feet, and Theodore's baritone voice and my shrill treble would ring out gaily through the gloomy trees. There was an old man who lived in Jerusalem, glory, hallelujah, Hiero Jerem. Never heard of that one before. He wore a top hat and he looked very spruce-lum, glory, hallelujah, Hiero Jerem. Skanema rinky doodle dum, Skanema rinky doodle dum, glory, hallelujah, Hiero Jerem. Thus concludes chapter 9, The World in a Wall. So there you have it. I'm very tired now. I'm going to go and lie down for a little while. No, before I go and lie down, I'm going to fill up Mr. Crow's little swimming pool, because he did ask politely, and it's only fair. It's a hot day again. So Goddess bless, and have a beautiful day, afternoon and evening, wherever you are in the space-time continuum, and shalom. Bye for now. Be back tomorrow with chapter 10, and take good care of yourselves. Remember, as always, to never ever let the bastards grind you down, and know before whom you stand. Bye for now, people of Earth.